Be careful what you pray for. And if you're in a rush and your prayer doesn't get answered, realize it might not be good for you. I'm going to share one incident and make this real short. It took me a long time to go in and out of colleges, transferred from one to another to get all the courses I needed that I could pass. And then it took me 3 years to finally pass the exam to become a certified clinical psychologist in Kentucky. And LaGrange wasn't too far away, but that's where all the prisons were. Men's prisons, women's prisons, and then there was a psychiatric men's prison. Let me tell you about the psychiatric one because I interviewed there. It was the first, they called me in for a few interviews, and they warned me. They warned me that as I pass their cells, some of them will have a cup of urine and throw it at me. Throw the urine, not the glass or the can, whatever it was. Also, they told me what types of things to be very careful of because they're dangerous. It was psychiatric. Some had killed people. They said some of these people may have diseases you don't want, so keep far away. Don't get close to the cell. Well, up to that point, I hadn't gotten any bites as far as invitations to work anywhere. In a normal mental health facility or alcohol and drug facility, I wasn't getting any callbacks. And if I called them, they wouldn't call back. Except for the prisons. And, I'll never forget this. One of the captains, or whatever they call themselves, that took me around, he had my home phone number. And I get a phone call in a few days, and he says, listen, I'm the one that went around with you. I'm Captain so-and-so at the psychiatric men's prison, and you were here to help our people. We haven't made a decision yet as far as hiring, but I need your help. He says, I need to go into the hospital immediately for substance abuse. Talking about a shocker. Imagine the head of the psychiatric department calling me up and saying, can I get you into a rehab center? Actually happened. But that's not what my focus is right now. My focus is be careful what you pray for. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed to get callbacks and to get hard there, but no callbacks. Nobody called me. Well, after a couple of interviews, that pretty well tells you where you stand. So, same thing with the other prisons. This is LaGrange, Kentucky. It has both women and men's prisons. why I chose to interview first for the psychiatric. And I suspect there were murderers in there waiting for you know what. Well, I started in Louisville trying to get an interview at all the mental health facilities, and they said, we like you. We'll call you back. No, you call us back tomorrow. You call us back. So I did. I never got a call back. Never did. I prayed and prayed. Now let me mention this too. The ones I interviewed, the mental health facilities and addiction facilities, were a step lower than the prison systems. I mean, a step higher. They were not top of the line. You wouldn't want to make them your friends. Can I just put it that way politely? You would not want to be friends with them. Including a halfway house where people were out of prison, but they had to stay there 6 months, get a job, prove that they could live in society. They wouldn't even hire me. So, Dismas House was the name of it, Dismas House. I had, on the way walking in, this shows you what area it was in downtown Louisville. As I would go in at nights, ladies would be walking down the street, and they'd say, "Hey, you looking for a date? You looking for a date?" That's the type of places I was interviewing for and praying to get hired. Prisons, I'll work there. Halfway houses where there are prostitutes walking around. Any place. And a month went by, possibly a year or two went by without a job. And I was with a minister named Frank Hoffman. His denomination was Disciples of Christ Christian. The Christian church, the Disciples of Christ was the initial Christian church, and then it split, and then it became, half of them went the route of being independent, just because of an interpretation of baptism. Because I've been members of both. And when I say this about baptism, you know, some people believe baptism's got to be dumped in water or a river. Others think you can sprinkle. Well, disciples would take you either way. Disciples of Christ Christian Church. However, the regular Christian church would rebaptize you in water even if you were sprinkled, and from a different denomination. So much for that. That's it for the religion talk. And we're going to go now toward watch what you pray for. If I had gotten any of those jobs that I was praying for, let's call them bottom of the line, where you had to be licensed, but they're not the ones that most people like I would prefer. Okay, let's go back to that church again, Disciples of Christ Christian Church. The pastor knew me. In fact, I was he says, let's go to this opening house. Art Linkletter's going to open it. Art Linkletter's daughter jumped out of the window and killed herself on LSD in New York City. It's a true story. Art Linkletter. You see the one with people are funny or he's passed away, I'm sure, but his daughter was on LSD while in college, I believe, and jumped out thinking she could fly. She did fly. So since she wasn't around anymore, every charter hospital, CHARTER, every charter hospital invited him to open it up. That would be have an open house, and he would give a speech, and we'd have free dinner. So the preacher calls me up. He gets the invitation because all the pastors got invitations. I didn't get an invitation to go, but he got an invitation to take whoever he wanted to. So he took me and my wife and his wife. And I remember this was a brand new, just opening charter hospital. And if I had to guess, it'd probably be in the early 80s. And 70, yeah, in the 80s. As we were walking up and down the halls, he said, Jim, point at one of these rooms and claim it to be your office. I said, Frank, the only jobs I've had are volunteer jobs for internships. They're not going to harm me. He said, just say you're going to be working here. Just point at one of the rooms. Said, this will be my job. This is where I'll start. This is where I'll start my career. Okay, I don't know if I did that, but I knew I wasn't going to work there. And when I did apply there, the director said, you don't have 3 years of sobriety, that means not drinking or drugging, and you haven't worked in the field for 3 years. So we can't take you. We're top of the line. Charter hospital chains, top of the line. We got to have experienced people, or people that know what it's like to have overcome it for 3 years. So I actually showed him my resume, and that's when he told me that. He says, keep your resume. I did. I kept looking for jobs for a year. I didn't pray for a job there. He already told me I was a loser. Every Sunday I would go to McDonald's and look at their Sunday 1 ads. And I would write down places that looked like I could apply and send a resume to. That's when you could send resumes. And the only callback I got on that was I think it was Sullivan College, and they wanted a night not a dean, but not the president, of course, but something a spec down from that. I think they called them deans, daytime dean, nighttime dean. This was at night because they were also a night school. Sullivan College or Spencerian College is what it was. And It was me that wrote a letter back telling him I can't accept this because I'm going to be taking some more classes in the field of substance abuse, and they're in the evening. So I cut the only job out that I was offered, and all of a sudden, here I am praying for a job, and I turned down the one that was prestigious. College. So I said, we'll just keep praying. And then I tell you, this Sunday was the only day I sent resumes out. I copied down what I thought might be suitable for me and sent it out on Monday, the resume. And I'd handwrite the letter. You're not supposed to do that on resumes. You're not supposed to handwrite. Now you have to email, but you were supposed to type. I didn't. I just handwrote. I saw your mention in the Courier Journal Sunday, dated so-and-so, and I wanted to apply. Here's my resume attached. Well, nothing happened until the phone rang. Do you remember me telling you about the guy that said he'd never hire me because I didn't have 3 years of sobriety experience? Or, yeah, I drank beer and wine, and he knew it. He knew it, and he also knew that I didn't have 3 years experience working in the field. I had, I would say, a couple years doing internships, but not 3. He said, Jim, are you working? I was embarrassed. I said, no, but I'm waiting for some calls. I've been putting some feelers out there. He says, well, look, a lot of people quit at Charter because we've switched from an addiction center to a psychiatric with real psychiatrists taking in any kind of mental illness a person had. So we've gone full blast, 50% psychiatric, 50% addictions. How would you like to be in charge of the addiction program? That was my first job. Didn't pray for it. Not once. I knew not to pray for it. But I found out it was God's will that I be hired. I've been praying for 50 other jobs. And I think God must have gone down and say, let's see what his style is. Let's see how he treats people. God's sitting up there saying this. Or Jesus. Maybe Jesus says, you know, he's kind of like me. He's laid back. And he's kind. And when he started, he didn't have any experience. Jesus, I'm talking about. Well, Jim doesn't have any experience. Let's go ahead and arrange it. Let's arrange the impossible for him to get hired where he was never expecting to and where he never applied because they told him they weren't going to hire him a year before, so he didn't even give them he didn't even give them anything, not even the phone number. But they got a phone number from where I had volunteered, done internships. From there, I went to a big HMO, that's Health Maintenance Organization, that was in charge of Humana Insurance Company's mental health and addictions. I was one of the few people that helped build it up. I started when it was down in the boondocks of Louisville, and I was actually called for replacement of people, of a particular guy that was in addictions that many times called in sick. So I was making so much an hour, which was only $35 an hour back then, that they were calling me in so much they said, I think our company's going to be better off if we just hire you full time. Will you take this much money? I said, sure. And by that time, we had moved to one of the biggest places in Louisville called the Springs, brand new. We were on either the second or third floor of it. It had a beautiful fountain when you walked in. Before I left, they had two other offices, with one being in Lexington, Kentucky. Three other, I think two more in Louisville and one in Lexington. Okay. Should I have said, be careful what you don't pray for, you might get it? Rather than be careful what you pay for, what you pray for, you might get it. Perhaps it was the actual force of prayer toward a target reason, purpose. Didn't matter what companies I named or applied for. The target was to work with mental health and addictions. And only one time up above did they say, we've got him. We've got him. We've got his target picked out. So I wanted to share that. I'll tell you not to give up praying for what you think is your, I want to say, vision, goal. I worked many years for this. I worked for many years for it. And toward the end, I had my own office here and in a few years in Kentucky, 3 or 4. Had both of them at the same time, but for way over 30 years, I had my own private practice here in Madison, Indiana. I want to thank you for sharing, or letting me share, and you sharing too. You're probably saying, Jim, I disagree with you there, or I do agree with you. You might be saying that and I don't hear you, but feel free to leave any comments. And every bit of this that I've shared is true. And two things I'll leave you with. There's no time period in which you're praying for. Don't pray today and expect it tomorrow or next year. For me, it was years. Number 2, don't restrict what God has for you in what you are shooting for, your target, your when I say your target, your obsession, what you want to do. Don't restrict them by saying you have to work at one company or another company, or I've interviewed at 10 companies and none of them want me. I think God's above that. If God wanted you at those companies, He'd make it possible. But in my case, He had to allow an addictions center to build a new hospital that became an addictions and psychiatric hospital and put me in charge of the addictions. And that took more than a week or a year. But what did I do? A substitute taught. I could do that because I had college. And that's the end of today's story, and I hope it helps somebody, at least one person.